Hello, and welcome to this episode of It's Not You, but Sometimes It Is, the podcast of real senior leaders having real conversation about all the crap they've overcome and the wisdom that they have taken from the adversity. And today's conversation with Michele Brown is an absolute joy. I'm so excited to be sharing her expertise with you. She is the Chief Operating Officer at GDC Marketing and Ideation. Very rich background, and we had a really cool, fun conversation around being very intentional in proactively shaping a culture and addressing some of that people friction that can come up. Michele is truly a jack of all trades and shares a lot of cool takeaways and wisdom with us. Enjoy the episode. Well, Michele, thank you so much for being here. And our guests are going to have a great time with this. This is Michele Brown with GDC Marketing and Innovation. Is that Ideation. Marketing and Ideation. Okay. So Michele, can you start by giving us a little introduction to your company at a high level, what it does and your role there?
Sure. So GDC Marketing and Ideation is based in San Antonio, Texas. We're a full service marketing communications firm. So everything from research and strategy to full board creative graphic design, copywriting, PR, crisis communications, media buying, strategy and marketing plans, and an experiential team. So we have a fleet of vehicles that, if you think of a U-Haul box truck with digital panels on all three sides, full audio video. So it can be, anything from movies in the park to a mobile billboard to, so for some clients, we've created virtual reality games that someone puts on a headset and plays the game that is integrated with our client, but you see it up all on the screen. So we do all of that for clients that are, some that are in San Antonio, but most that are regional and national as well. Okay. And then I'm the Chief Operating Officer.
Chief Operating Officer. How many employees do y'all have right now?
So we have 30 here in between San Antonio, Houston, and Colorado.
Okay. Cool. So can you tell us a little bit about your path to this position? Because you have a very interesting, I was looking at your career background, and it's sort of like you've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a bit of a Swiss Army knife, right? Which is always a good place to be when you never really know what the day is going to bring, right? So if we go back to how I first got started in any type of marketing, communications, media, I was a senior in high school, and I was listening to the radio, and I was taking a break from homework, which anybody in the right mind would want to do. And this particular radio station I listened to back in the day would let you request songs or vote for, I don't remember with it, but for some reason, early engagement and call in. And I called in to do whatever, was the game or thing that they were playing. And the air personality said, "Hey, you have a really good voice. You should get a job here." Well, Meg, at the time I was doing birthday parties at McDonald's, which there was nothing wrong for that as a senior in high school. But I don't know, radio sounded pretty cool back, compared to that. So come to find out, I got a position there part-time, working with the air personality that was on the air and taking requests and helping him, basically help behind the scenes with the program. 3 months into that job, the station was sold, which is very normal, especially back in the day in radio. And the only people they kept were the part-time people, because we were the ones who knew how to answer the phones and get the thing ready for whatever air personality was there and run the board and all of that. And so early on, it made me realize, learn how all of the things work together, not just your particular role. Work to master your role, but ask a lot of questions. And so that led me to interning in the newsroom at the CBS station in San Antonio while working part-time and going to school, and working part-time in the television news production department. So I would run the teleprompter, be the floor manager, run studio cameras, and understand the behind the scenes of creating a newscast and their other productions, while learning the journalism part of it and the news making part and deciding what makes news and what doesn't make news. Mm-hmm. Was able to spin forward and work eventually in that news department, and did a role called utility, which meant I could be an assignments editor one day, producing the next day, reporting the next day, just filling in the blanks, kind of that Swiss Army knife. When I left there after 5 years and after school, I was producing their morning show, which was an incredible experience. Didn't really enjoy the in front of the camera. Loved, again, to see how it all came together and how I could pull all the parts and pieces together to make it work. Left there, moved into a PR role in an advertising agency that had just won a national account. And at 24 years old, was on the road every 2 weeks out of the month for a year as we were grand opening new stores and working to get the media coverage. Did that for a while and then came back to move to a different agency that was run by someone that I worked with at the TV station. And that is what is now GDC Marketing and Ideation. Okay. So I was at GDC for 20 years in a series of roles: PR, crisis communications, account executive. My areas of expertise were consumer packaged goods, financial services, retail, but I was also very interested in operations. So I wore two hats. I was the director of operations while working on client-facing accounts. Right. Left after 20 years, had done a lot of different things, switched roles about every 2 years, but just thought this was the time in my life to work in nonprofit, which I'd always done volunteer work, children's mental health and education, and equity in education was very important to me. And so I worked for 2 nonprofits in that space, but really realized I missed the agency life. I missed the pace and the diversity of clients. And shortly in October of 2020, kind of as we got our arms around COVID a little bit more, decided to make the leap and came back to the agency as the chief operating officer.
Okay, cool. So I have to admit, Michele, the arc of your career is similar to a lot of COOs, because COO really just means do all the most important stuff that the CEO doesn't do. It's not even like a job description, right?
Right. Because it's truly the other duties assigned.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's like all your duties.
That's the catch.
So it, like, being a Swiss Army knife is, and just being willing to take those risks and be ambitious and take that next role has kind of led you to this place of being able to be confident in a COO role. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I always like to talk about what doesn't go well, right? Because we've all had these shiny careers and this, I'm in this great role, but the reality is we took some hard hits and learned from the school of hard knocks. So can you share, as you were kind of elevating into more and more senior leadership roles, what is one of the hardest things that you've had to go through? What did you do to overcome it, and what was your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we always laugh at, it's easy when it's, birds chirping, children playing, everybody's having fun, right? It's when it gets really hard or something goes wrong or people are very human, where you're like, oh boy, got to dig in and figure that out. I think there's been a lot of bumps along the way. I think as I look through and really take kind of a personal inventory of where it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but what I could have done differently. A lot of it has to do with maybe asking more questions and getting a firm kind of grounding situationally, so that I had a sense of what I was walking into, or I had a sense of how to approach something or someone. I think when I have a tendency to jump in and help solve, sometimes it doesn't require solve. Sometimes it requires jumping in and doing more listening and asking more questions and being more curious. I read a lot. I'm a learner. I love picking up new things. And sometimes I short circuit from learning and understanding to doing a little too fast. And that's when, if you are honest with yourself and look back and go, oh, those are some of the times where I really wish I would have, stopped and kind of taken a step, taken a breath, and moved faster. I will tell you, it's interesting to undo some of those habits. I got started in industries where dead air and quiet were bad. Right. If you think about it in radio, when it's quiet, something is wrong. if suddenly you go to black, dip down from a newscast and you see nothing on your screen, that's bad. And I think that might have over-indexed in some of my aspects of trying to work too fast and not just letting things unfold the way they're supposed to unfold. So there's a lot of lessons in that, but it did really only hit me a bit with a sledgehammer about 6 or 7 years ago that was the case. Took me a little bit.
Yeah, we learn these hard lessons, right, after making the mistake about 30 times and not realizing the nature of the mistake. And I think, we as humans with the brains that we have, right, we tend to feel like we feel a false urgency to make ourselves feel better. I don't like this, yuck. I don't like not knowing what to do. I'm going to make quick decisions even though I'm a little bit stressed and emotional and not thinking completely thoroughly. I'm not curious enough, right? And we all do that, but then it results in you looking back and going, oh, I didn't even realize what was happening. I was solving the wrong problem.
Yeah. Well, and I think and I think failing is important. And I think failing early in your career and recognizing that is super important. I think as you get older, failing is hard, right? I think, I don't know, I have a tendency to beat myself up a little bit. And it's only been recently where I've and appreciate the time and space of good friends and close friends or close colleagues to say, hey, you did X, and I'm not sure I know you didn't mean it, but I'm not sure you understood the consequences of that. Yeah. And that's important. And I take that in the spirit that it's given, and go from there. At least I hope I can, right? That's what you hope.
That's the feedback we needed too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So you reference the firm life as like, you like the fast-paced environment, the change, the newness, that you're constantly being pushed to learn a new business and how to support them, and your team has been growing. So what have you figured out about culture, and what kind of culture is going to work for your company and what kind of culture does not work for you? You know, they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what were some of those hard lessons learned on the culture side?
Yeah, culture has always been very synonymous with this organization. We've always been known for our culture. Early in our years of our organization, we allowed people to bring their kids to work with them because we knew that would acquire some of the best and brightest talent. And it gave a lot of opportunities for people to continue to raise a family, men and women, in addition to being able to do really great work. And it's a heck of a retention tool. And so we even got a law in the state of Texas passed that you could bring your kids to work with you. We had a whole infrastructure of support where there were people who were helping to raise our kids, right? So early childhood educators, things like that. We had a whole infrastructure to do that. We would get 500 resumes for receptionist positions. I mean, it was crazy because we were known for having this very family-centric culture. As we evolved as an organization, we realized that family culture is important. Team and culture is more important. It's hard to reprimand or hold your family accountable.
Exactly.
It's easier to hold a teammate accountable, right? So there was that culture shift in the language that we used and how we reacted to things. I think COVID took everybody out by the knees. And one of the things that was interesting with this organization is we were going through a CEO change. Our original founder, Frank Guerra, had retired. Beth Ochoa, who was our CEO, had moved into that position and was trying to wear two hats of CEO, excuse me, and COO. Then COVID happened. And so that's where having that culture was super, super important, because what happened was there was a culture committee that was created that was representative from the agency that was helping to take care of the people side, while Beth and our CFO and others were focused on how do you get the PPP loan? How do we make sure that we're shoring up our clients? How do we make sure? So where it wasn't always the bird chirping, children playing, right? It was really hard, but organizationally, we wanted to make sure the culture stayed where it needed to be. So like a great example of that is, I don't know what it's like in your house, but typically the parent has the better laptop and maybe might borrow the laptop or let their child loan them the laptop to do schoolwork. We realize now that all of our parents had their kids at home doing schoolwork. They might be sharing one laptop or two laptops. In the state of Texas, you couldn't use your phone as a laptop for school. It had to be a physical laptop or a tablet. So the agency invested and got Chromebooks for the kids that needed it, because that allowed parent to focus on the work
Mhm.
while trying to parent their kids and have the school part of it working. And if anybody, I don't care if you were a parent or not during the pandemic, you could sympathize or you were up chin deep in it. You needed solves for lots of things. We worked our best to not lay off people. We wanted to make sure that our team stayed intact, but we had an experiential team that was on the ground in the community doing all of the things. So we repurposed all of those folks into other roles within the organization that would help our cash flow, that would still, there was a disconnect between the work they were doing and what they were hired to do. But we wanted to put them to work in doing the things to make sure that our business was moving forward and that we were keeping our team whole where we could. We would do agency retreats. We still did staff meetings. We would do coffee check-ins where, hey, anybody jump on a call and do those kinds of things. We really worked on our culture. Then we came, the world kind of lifted their heads up and took a deep breath. We stayed in hybrid mode, and we are in hybrid mode today. We're 2 days in the office, 3 days remotely. We hire adults. We make sure that folks come in when they need to come in. And if it's easier for you to take calls all day from home because it's quieter at your home than it is in the office, that's fine. We hire adults to do that work. We don't see a productivity change.
Yeah.
The other thing we did is we got together after the pandemic. We kept that culture committee and said, what do we need to do? And what we overwhelmingly heard was rebuild relationships and build connection, continue to build connections. So we started to do 2 employee events a month, and it could just be a potluck. It could be, we do something called a rap party, which is a little W, capital RAP. And it's just kind of a running joke. We celebrate birthdays of rappers that particular month, and we show highlights of all the projects we wrapped that quarter. And it's just goofy and fun and silly, but it's a connection point where you get somebody off that little 2x3 Zoom screen and you see them in person and you break bread with them and you spend a little time with them. And then when things go south, because inevitably we're human and something goes wrong, you've had that relationship with your team member and you're more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt. So we worked really hard. Did we get it right each time? Nope, not even close. But we really, really worked hard to try and build our team and rebuild our team and build community. We lost folks that left at some point. We did exit interviews to figure out why and what did we learn from that and how do we reapply those learnings and make sure that we try and refigure or reconfigure some of the things we do to make sure that we're truly hearing from employees. We have a lot of things in place right now to do that if you don't feel comfortable enough to talk to your director. And sometimes we get stuff that bubbles up from that. But for the most part, we've built relationships with folks so we can have true, honest conversations. And because we're a team that holds our team members accountable, there's a lot of calling of the herd because people want to make sure that folks are doing the right thing and not taking advantage of the system. So it's a lot of top stuff, but it's also a lot of groundswell and kind of meeting in the middle. It worked out for our company very well. In 2023, the San Antonio Business Journal named us the Business of the Year. And it was not only for business growth, but because of our culture as well. And honestly, that was coming out of the pandemic and all the crazy that came with that. We felt like it was very validating, not to necessarily rest on our laurels from that, but hey, that we're moving in the right direction and that the retention and the people that we have had given us good feedback as well.
Yeah, I think the pandemic really shined a spotlight on companies that had strong relationships and high levels of trust. They actually did just fine, and of course it was hard and we all had to work on it, but companies that paid less attention to the connection, the relationships, the culture, right, the level of trust, those who weren't paying much attention, all of a sudden they were trying to catch up, but they didn't really have the skills and the habits and the systems, right? So it sounds like it really paid off for you guys.
Yeah, and it's continuing always. We can't just say, "What we did it this month," and then we go from there. It is something that is constant. The drum that I consistently beat is treat ourselves like a client. Are we treating ourselves like a
Yeah.
client? Are we checking in with folks? Are we making sure things are okay?
Mhm.
Somebody has the flu, great. Do they need a porch drop off of soup? What does that look like? How do we make sure that we're treating ourselves like a client, and we would treat our client checking in and respect, and what do you need, and how can we be supportive? And that's something that's important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, it's making sure we're still seeing the humanity in people. We're not just cogs in a wheel. We know
Absolutely.
that, but it takes a lot of creativity to figure out how to do that in a way that's going to work for your group of people and how to evolve and keep getting better.
Yeah, and we've found that that comes a lot from the people who are dealing with it day to day, just like we are too. There's a lot of feedback that comes from our community to make sure that we're on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about leadership because y'all have obviously been proactively shaping the culture from the top, right? And being really conscious about it, but listening to everyone, no matter what level your position is in. So leadership is key, especially when it comes to these crises and the people side of a
Yeah,
business. So sometimes we have all learned how to lead by experiencing how we don't want to lead, right? Those leaders that you're just like, oh my gosh, are they not aware at all of their impact on
right.
the team and what they're actually doing? So can you give me an example of what you've learned from a bad boss about how you don't want to be and how have you flipped that to be like an important trait of how you show up as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, not naming names, but I think challenges always come from not having a clear understanding or clear communication. And it's funny, one of the podcasts you had recently, we're talking about over communication and what does that mean? And how does that mean and resonate with somebody? And it was interesting because I consider over communication important in that it's the right message at the right frequency at the right time, the way the person needs to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And so you might blast something out at a staff meeting, but somebody is trying to get a kid out the door or is distracted by an email or just missed it and needs more information. Sometimes you have to be repetitive in what you say. I think the challenges that I have had with a leader has had more to do with the fact of miscommunication or lack of communication, understanding who is doing what and how are things moving forward. And so while that's not going to be a solve for all things, I think it also means making sure you've hired the right people in the right seats to do the right amount of work, and also recognizing when it's not a right fit, that's okay too. How can you, with empathy, provide an exit ramp or receive an exit ramp from that organization that it's okay that it's not the right fit. It's okay. We give it a shot, both sides equally, and then move from there. So I think what I've learned from those particular situations that I've been in is someone else had referenced Brene Brown, who I'm a huge fan of. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind.
Yeah.
And that is kind of my mantra.
Okay.
If you are clear with someone, this is how I heard what you said. This is what I see as next steps. This is how I'm moving forward. And you're clear, you owe clear communication, but you should receive clear communication as well. And so I feel like how I've taken that and turned it is we have 90-day check-ins with folks, no matter how fabulous things are going when you're first onboarded within the organization. We have 6-month and year goals. We do goal setting not only as an organization, but how does that affect your department? And what is your department doing to reach those goals or help us collectively reach our goals? And then individually, what are you doing to help the department goals, to help the organizational goals? And check-ins with people, we call them one-on-ones, and do the one-on-ones with someone to understand so that it's not as much, it's over communicating in as a way, but it's walking in lockstep. So you as the employee know your why, the organizational why, and what you're going to do as a roadmap to get there.
Yeah. Right.
What are we all rowing in the same direction going forward? And then when things are not going well, not waiting for that 90 or 6-month or year review, checking in pretty quick to when something happened and saying, hey, this really isn't aligned with what we talked about. We as an organization have core values. this is, and we have defining and defeating behaviors as part of those core values, which we have updated because things pop up and you have to define them. But to be really clear with people and understand, hey, this is working or this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's not working, we know it's much easier to find a job when you have a job. And there is many, many a time where we have agreed, hey, this is not working. We're going to take the next 4 weeks and you're going to work with your director and you're going to have roles and responsibilities and deliverables, but you're also going to have the flexibility to go interview for other jobs. And we're so supportive of that. And we're going to give you an exit ramp. And you might not need 4 weeks because you're great, or you might need the 4 weeks and then we'll close our chapter and wish you the best.
Yeah.
But we have found when you keep people around that are the people that are not aligned with your culture, the people who are more trouble than they're worth,
Mm-hmm.
and you cut bait quick, it affects the cancer is deep.
Mm-hmm.
And just cutting that one person out isn't enough. And we've had to learn that out the hard way. And, there's still times where we don't get it right.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I've learned from situations is how can you apply that and empower the directors to have those conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and let's move forward.
Yeah. And that is a next level of leadership skill, is the ability to maintain compassion, even when someone is struggling and underperforming, and to be able to have those hard conversations in a way that brings clarity, right? We're not trying to save everyone. We're trying to get clear on here's what's expected and you're not there.
Yes.
We're going to try to move that path forward, but we're getting to a yes or a no. We're not getting to, I'm going to keep like struggling and trying to pull you along. It's like, no, we're going to be very clear. Yeah.
Right. And it's fair on both sides. It's fair on both sides. And it's taken a bit for us to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, we do our best to do the right thing each time. We're not perfect, but that's the intention. And I think if we're all in the same place in trying to move that forward, it resolves what could be a really a key situation as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And things do get sticky and prickly with people, right? Leadership would be easy if it wasn't for people. So,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm interested in your thoughts on like, what are the indicators that you've got a bad boss, you've got someone in a leadership role who needs coaching, and what's your approach to addressing it?
Yeah. I think that we can help organizationally to a point, but if we have someone that we can see who is a really great at their job, it's the people piece that is hard, and not everybody knows how to do that. We decided to work with a third party and bring someone in to help coach.
Yeah.
And what we have found with that is it's been super helpful because that person knows who we are and as an organization and knows the personalities, but also has some mad skills to be able to help that individual in recognizing things that they may not see in themselves, and help coach them in that way too. And say it in a way, we talked about over communication, right? And clear communication. Sometimes you need to hear things different ways in order to make it clear that you can move forward. So we work with this individual who is able to do a 360 assessment. So we talk to 5 people within the organization who that individual picks, the partner. And then with that information, this third party person works and helps them set goals for the year, is on speed dial for them within, every month to check in. When I hear feedback from someone of, hey, I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z, the first thing I ask is, have you called Henry Sauer? Henry Sauer is our consultant. I'm just like, have you had a chance to talk to Henry about that? Yes, great. Let's talk about what he shared with you. Or you haven't. This is a great example of how to engage this person. I have found more on the people side, folks don't necessarily, they need some real world examples of, this is something I could talk to Henry about, right? How that has helped us is it really has helped us identify who are the people that we can grow within the organization, and who are the people that either self-select out saying, I thought I wanted this. Now that I've really understood it, I'm not the right person for it. And that's okay, because there's a path for that person as well. It's helped us really identify some gaps, and it's helped us organizationally because we're trying to grow better leaders internally.
Mhm.
We're working on our succession plan now, and we want those succession planning to be people from within the organization.
Right.
Recognizing that we can't do it all and having a third party has been super, super important.
Absolutely. And I think, when we think about bad bosses, a lot of people think, oh, there's nothing you can really do about that. You're just gonna have to change them out for someone else. And really bad leadership is a lack of skill and how to deal with people and manage your own self and decision making. And most of us have not gotten a lot of support in that.
And yeah, and I think organizationally, we had in years, I mean, we've been around going almost 29 years, hitting our 30 years. We've always been, congratulations, you got promoted. And then it's like, dun, da, 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 clunk, and nothing happens after that, right? And you're expected to know and do all of these things. And it's not fair to anyone involved. Right. Inevitably, you're setting up unrealistic expectations and not providing the support needed.
Exactly. So, yeah. Michele, let's pretend that we have a time machine and we can send you back in time 10 to 15 years to the earlier leading Michele. What is the most important piece of advice you wish you could give yourself back then?
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. It's so interesting that you said when we had earlier in this conversation, when you were talking about sense of urgency and how you feel in your head things should go over. And in working like up to your neck with this particular client and they move at the speed of retail and things are fast and you want to show them we're the right people for the job and we do all of this. And so you might set a timeline that in your head felt like, this really shows that we're getting the work done and we're the right partner and it hits all the buttons. And it might have not been awesome for the rest of the people that had to follow through on that.
Yeah.
And to that I say, when you know better, you do better. And there were several people who had said, hey, when does this really need to be done? Let's talk more about this. And I'm to this day appreciative of them. Again, do we get it right every time? No. But when I look back, I think there was this internal drive that I had that was self-inflicted. And sometimes my sense of urgency made the client super happy. And yeah, it might have shored up a bunch of relationships and all of that. But it made it hard for other people. And that's not being a good team member. It's not being a good team member.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, Michele, thank you again for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. It was a pleasure to have you. And I'm going to take that advice for myself. I still can use that. Meg, take a deep breath. This is really what you need to do right now, right?
Yes. Breathing is great for a lot of reasons, but that's definitely one of them. But thank you for having me. This was really awesome.
Great. Thanks, Michele.
Thank you.